That's where I'm born and raised.
Hartford.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know Hartford.
No one knows it because there's nothing there.
No.
So
How many grandparents are divorced
that's
these
crazy.
days?
You go to school, doctor, dentist, lawyer. Entrepreneurs just was not it.
Noel. Yeah, she can fix that. You gotta get it done, no, you need to do it better. Well, she can fix that. Yeah, she can fix that. Investment to get back, trying to get a big stack. She can fix that. Let's fix that.
So you are from, just tell me where you're from initially and where you live now, and do you consider this your home, or do you just live here, kind of a thing?
So it's so funny. As a real estate entrepreneur, I have lived now in like 10 different states, but I am from Bloomfield, Connecticut, this small town outside of Hartford, Connecticut, which is the capital. That's where I'm born and raised.
Hartford. Yeah. Well, I don't know Hartford.
No one knows it because there's nothing there.
No, but
insurance companies.
I spent some time in stores.
Okay, me too.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I am a UConn graduate.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
I'm a UConn, well, I guess I'm a graduate.
You are a graduate, even if you haven't graduated.
Postgraduate.
Yes, correct.
Right, okay, anyway, so you're from Bloomfield, Connecticut.
I am from Bloomfield, Connecticut.
Why? What was there that you...
This is why it's so weird. So you're looking at me and you're like, okay, so I'm of Jamaican descent. Both of my parents are Jamaican. I'm actually a first U.S. born of all of my grandmother's grandchildren.
So you grew up in a home with the Jamaican mom thing going
Jamaican
on?
mom, Jamaican dad, Jamaican grandparents, lots of people coming and immigrating from Jamaica to America. And that is like my childhood. And I feel like that shaped me a lot because America was seen as this great place of opportunity. And like even my dad, his real name is George Washington. And then the last name, we're not going to go there, but it's George Washington. Washington is his middle name. And then his last name, because my grandmother, she loved America. Yeah. And she saw America as like this great place to opportunity, and just always wanted to come to America. And we're going to circle back to my grandmother in a second, but we were the place where everyone just started coming. You know what I mean? Family members would live with us for a few months, get a job, and then they would move out.
Now, what was the Hartford, greater Hartford area, was that known as a Jamaican magnet? Or were you the only Jamaican family?
I feel like there were tons of Jamaicans there, ironically. So New York, I think, was probably the best where everyone was. New York City. The melting pot. Exactly. Yes. It was New York City. And then they just trickled into Connecticut because it was more suburban. There were some tobacco fields there where my grandfather, at one point, he worked in the tobacco fields, and there were a lot of tobacco fields in Connecticut. I did not know this until I was an adult. But yeah, and so that was what they did for work. And then as I looked back now, I'm 40 years old, but as I was a child, just watching how my family escalated themselves with all of us kind of helping each other, immigrating here. You stay with someone in your family, you get a job, then you move out, and just like, wow.
Is that part of the Jamaican
Our culture? Your culture? Yeah, I feel like it is.
But I mean, where anyone that's a member of the family
can live with you.
So you have multi-generational.
Yes.
Did you live with grandma and grandpa?
Yes, live with so here's the funny part, because my grandparents are actually divorced. Long story short, my grandfather came to America.
How many grandparents are divorced?
That's
these
crazy.
Days?
Crazy.
Yeah, what happened?
I felt like that was super weird, and my grandparents were the only grandparents that were divorced. But my grandfather moved here first, and that was his thing. I'm going to move. I'm going to start making money. He was in his 40s, I guess, when this happened.
So he already had kids.
They already had kids, already grown. They were already, the kids were adults. Yeah, because my dad didn't come here until he was in his 20s. But long story short, my grandfather comes, and my grandmother was supposed to come later. And he was supposed to start working, making money. And my grandmother actually was afraid to leave Jamaica. And this is one of the stories I actually do tell people when I talk about how I've become so successful. Is talking back to my grandmother when I was probably about 33 years old. And she was just telling me, don't be like her. Do not be like me. Don't be afraid. Try new things. Because they ended up getting divorced because she took so many years to move to America. She was so afraid. After all of this, naming her kids after the presidents of the United States, now it's time to actually come to America. All of the kids have come. Her husband has come. And she was just afraid.
What was she afraid of?
She was just afraid of the newness of it. Just what do I expect when I get there? Where am I going to work? I don't know anyone. And just the fear.
But now, correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes I'm a bit of adult. But I mean, like, it wouldn't be a language barrier because don't they speak English?
Correct. It is definitely not. It was not a language barrier. It wasn't a career. She worked in nursing. It really was just this fear of this newness. Yeah. And so what ended up happening...
Snow.
Correct. It was cold. That's what I think it was. And my grandfather told her, but he ended up giving her an ultimatum. And this is a true and fun story. He ended up giving her an ultimatum. Either you come to America or I'm going to divorce you. Because it had been like 7, 8 years. You know what I mean?
Dude wants to get on with his life, doesn't he?
Exactly.
Did he have a lady friend?
Well, eventually he remarried and all of that.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know that part.
Okay, no, I'm just saying, I mean, if you're just a blue-blooded male American man and you're like, my wife's in Jamaica for 8 years.
Correct.
Maybe it's time for an ultimatum.
Correct.
I can see that. Okay.
Correct. So long story short, my grandmother really ended up losing all of these connections because everyone did come to America and they were thriving. It was a place where, as Jamaicans, they always felt like, they would have 2 and 3 jobs. They would really work really hard to get where they needed to get to. And so as everyone's coming over and starting to thrive, no one wants to go back to this little village in Jamaica.
Right.
And live. And my grandmother comes over eventually after, many, many years after they're completely divorced. And it just was sad. And it's this sad story that I use to empower myself because my grandmother, it was really just fear. And she said it. She was like, I was just afraid. And I don't.
So they're divorced. She comes over. Does she live in the same house?
So she ended up moving in with me and my parents. Okay. Me and my parents. My dad. That's my dad's mom. He moves in with with us. And as I'm a little kid, it's funny. It was amazing because my grandmother's making me porridge. She makes me tea. And I'm in America, and they're like, "Why does this little kid have tea?"
This does seem.
Why is this little kid drinking tea with milk in it? Right? But it was the Jamaican culture. And I loved it. I loved all of the different aunts. Pretty much all of my aunts and uncles lived with me, different cousins. Like I said, my grandmother. So it was.
Now, let me ask you this. Was there enough room for everyone? I mean, is it a tiny little place or did they have a big home? I mean, because at some point we're going to get to you doing real estate. Correct.
So in the beginning, obviously I'm 5 years old. We're in an apartment and the people and my grandmother, my mom, my dad, we live in an apartment. And then they get a house, when I'm like 6 or 7, and which is even more room for different family members to come, now that we have our house. And but my parents were one of the first to own a home in America. And I remember what a big deal that was, this tiny little crappy house, it was this just big deal about accomplishing things. And that was probably the big lesson from all of it, is that, they just saw America as this big opportunity. And that was just all it ever was. Like, you can do anything here, do something.
So with that as a backdrop, now that's been informing your decisions, whether educationally. So you said you went to UConn.
I did.
Did you finish?
I did.
And what kind of degree?
I did. So I have a degree in urban planning. I have 2 master's degrees. I have a master's degree in economic development from Penn State, and I have my MBA from Baylor. So school was super important, needless to say, to this culture and to what we were doing. Now, I don't actually subscribe to a lot of that anymore, just being really honest with you. But culturally, that was just their answer to everything.
Were your siblings, by the way, what kind of sibling action did you have?
Okay, so I have an older sister. She's 1.5 years older than me. I'm the middle kid. And then I have a little brother who is 14 years younger than us. So it was really just kind of me and my sister. My sister was born in Jamaica.
Is he a step?
Nope. Oh. No.
I'll read the book.
Yeah.
So did your other siblings, did they go on and get graduate degrees?
My sister has a master's degree as well. She worked at Aetna for many, many years. Kind of that same, we got to work. The difference between me and them, though, is I'm now the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that takes risks. And I think that is the big difference between how I grew up. The way we grew up, everything was, you go to school, doctor, dentist, lawyer. You know what I mean? That was just like the thing. That was the only 3 things in the world you should aspire to be.
Yeah.
And entrepreneur, someone that flipped houses or someone that, had their own business, just was not it. So that was kind of the difficulty with me, but everything when we were growing up was school, work. Wow, that was an amazing episode. If you want my new book, you can get it absolutely free at noellsfreebook.com. Get my new book, Real Estate Millionaire Secrets, absolutely free. You just cover the shipping and handling. Go to noellsfreebook.com. That's NOELLE with an S,
𝗏𝗏'sfreebook.com. I have poured my heart into this book, and I am teaching you all about real estate, how I started with bankruptcy, bad credit, no money, and how you can do the exact same thing too. Check out my new book because I want to make sure that you have all of the resources, all of the tools, and all of the knowledge that you need to be successful. This is Noelle, to your success.
I'm working full time and going to school full time.
Of course, you're Jamaican.
Correct. You have
Yes,
to work.
you
You must work.
Yes.
So this truly to me is my origin story. That's when I said, okay, I don't want to be a loser.